Hello again, this is the second CSS tutorial for the Guelph-Humber course AHSS 3080. If this is the first one you're watching, please watch the other one first. It goes through some of the more basic elements of adding cascading style sheets to an HTML document. What we're going to do in this video is add cascading style sheets to your existing HTML resume. So this is what my HTML resume example looks like without any styles added, and then this is what I've done to add some styles. The content is the exact same, so you'll see starts off with my name and my info there, name, info. All we're doing is adding styles. We're adding color, we're changing font, we're changing background colors, and we're adding a repeating background image. So to start out, I have my resume file on the desktop. Just like the other exercises we've done, everything has to be in the same folder. So before I do anything, I'm just going to create a new folder called Styled Resume. Again, not using any spaces, and then drag my resume into that folder. So as of right now, when I open that, there's only one file in the Styled Resume folder, and it is my HTML file. I'm going to open this up in Dreamweaver actually. And this should look pretty familiar. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new style sheet. File, new, CSS. Before I do any work, I'm going to save this as in the same folder, Styled Resume, as resume style. Make note that where the capital is. Just as a recap, we have the Styled Resume folder, and in that Styled Resume folder we have the resume HTML file. Now we have the style resume CSS file. So to start out, the first thing I'm going to do is change the font of every single element in the HTML file. To do that, we can add a style to the body tag. And I'm going to say that the font family, oops, in this case, I'm going to change it to Arial. If this looks new so far, please go back and watch the other YouTube video that I posted yesterday before you go too much farther with this video, because this video is going to go a little bit quicker. We have to connect these two files together. To do that, I'm going to link them with the style sheet. I'm going to link to the sheet itself, and in this case, remember that it has to be the exact, spelled the exact same way. Type is text CSS, and the media is screen. Okay, so if I've done this properly, we should see the all of the font families change in the browser. The reason all of the font families are going to change is because we're putting a style on the body tag, and right now every single piece of content that we have is within the body tag. So let's take a look, and there we go. So I'm gonna you can see that the font has changed here. Next up, I'm going to add a background color to all of the H2 tags. So everybody's resume is going to look a little bit differently. In my case, all of the secondary headings I made H2. Oops, so experience, awards and accomplishments. And to look at it in this case, all of these sort of secondary headings are our H2 tags. You can put styles on whatever you would like, but in my case, I'm going to add styles to the H2 tags. What I'm going to do is add a background color. I'm going to do something. I have this written down from before. Oops. To do a nice dark red. Remember to add to end each line with a semicolon. Another way that you can pick a color is just to click on this color wheel and then pick something in here. But I'm going to stick with that dark red that I have. So now I'm going to preview this. Whoops. Extra character there. There we go. Now I'm going to preview it. All the H2 tags in my case are changing color. I'd recommend that whatever way that you define these secondary headings, you make them bold, you make them stand out in some way. In my case, what I'm working towards is a dark red background. Next I'm going to change the color of the font itself just by using color. I'm going to make it white, and I'm going to do something like transform everything to uppercase. What this will do is make everything capital, whether it's written as capital or not in the HTML. You can take a look at some of the other ways of adding CSS elements by the link I just posted on Twitter, or just by searching CSS styles. I preview this. So now we have the white font on the red background, but it's a little bit too close to the edge for me, so I'm going to add padding like we did in the earlier video. Padding adds a little bit of room in between the content and the edge of the background. I think 5 pixels will be enough in this case, and that just spaces it out a little bit more. So next up, what I want to do is, if I preview this again, I want to sort of break it up into individual sections. To do that, I'm going to create my own new div tag, and because we're not using an existing element here, I'm going to create a new element. We have to start it off with a period, and I'm going to call this one section. When you're creating new divs, you can call them whatever you want, but it just has to be written the exact same way when you reference it in the HTML document as well. I know that I want to change the background color in each one of these sections to a gray color. Pick that gray, and then I'm going to add these sections inside the HTML documents. I'm going to put them underneath each smaller heading. So why don't we start here, and to add these new sections that we're making, we're going to add the div tags and call the class section is the one that we just created. I'm going to end it after this paragraph, close the div, tab everything over so it's easier to read, and leave myself a comment saying this start of section div and end of section div. Preview it. Now you can see that there's a gray box around the background of this. Not quite what I'm looking for. Still want to change it up a little bit, so I'm going to add a few other things. In my case, I'm going to add a border. that is thin and dotted. Explore the other elements or the other styles that you can add within border. You can make it a thicker border, different color, dashed. Try experimenting, playing around. I don't expect you to make your resume look the exact same as mine, but I want you to explore a little bit and add some different visuals to it. I'm also going to add some padding, 10 pixels to give it a little bit of space, and we'll take a look at that. Oops, that's not quite what I wanted to do. So what I wanted to do was, I didn't want the objective, in this case, inside this div. It looks like I've just added the HTML in the wrong spot. So to change that, I'm just going to bring this outside of that div, and that's what I wanted to do there. As we go down, I'm going to copy and paste to add these sections, make it a little bit quicker. I do want each one of these inside. I'll tab this over, close the div, and leave myself a comment. I like to preview it as we go just to make sure everything's working well, and that's exactly what I wanted to happen. So each separate area I want to be encapsulated in a different gray box. So I'm going to do the same here, copy and paste, tab it over, close my div, leave a comment, save it, take a look at it, and keep going with this. Tab it over, close the div, oops, leave myself a comment, and preview it. So one thing I don't like is everything is rammed in together. Everything is pushed right up against each other, these three different divs. So what we can do, rather than adding a line break, we can actually add some space outside of this. You remember in the last video we added a margin. We can add a margin to the bottom of each of these divs just by going back into the styles and adding a margin to the bottom, so margin dash bottom. In my case I'm just going to put 5 pixels, should be enough. Preview that. You can see we've added a little bit of space there. Exactly what I was trying to do. So I'm going to continue this and do the exact same thing as we move down here. Going to get a little bit repetitive, but if I copy and paste this, tab this section over, close the div, leave a little comment just to help me keep track. I have to go back in and edit it. Tab this over again, close it, paste that, tab it over, close it, preview that, and that worked out perfectly. I'm going to continue on down the line. If you're wondering how I'm pasting so quickly, I'm just using a shortcut of Control C and Control V. And that just saves a lot of time. couple more to go. Oops. These comments just help if I have to come back and edit this later. It'll just be easier for me to remember what each one was, and I won't get confused where the divs start and finish. Finally getting to the end here. Close this last div. Take a look at this. Everything looks good. If you run into the problem where things sort of nest into each other and start moving around, you might want to make sure that all of your divs are closing properly. In this case, when this div starts here, it ends here. The next one starts after this one closes. Maybe we'll put the last one around the references. Tab this last piece, oops. Tab it over. Keep hitting caps lock. Okay. So next what I want to do is everything is sort of taking up the entire width of the screen. I want to shrink it down and center it. So what we did last time was we created a div that wraps around everything, and we're going to do the same one this time around. A nice easy way of describing that is I like using a word like overall because it is the overall container. Remember to start with a period, and in my case I'm going to make this 960 pixels wide. I picked 960, just it's a common width for web pages. It's easy to divide into sections, and works quite well on most screens. I'm going to go back in here, and I want every single thing in this page to be inside that div. So right after the body, I'm going to create a new div called overall. So I'm going to leave myself a note, start of overall div, tab everything over. Then right before we close the body tag, I'll close this div and say end of overall div. You'll notice that as soon as I start typing this in, it closes the div for me. If you're not getting that, it might mean that you have another tag open and then it's trying to close that other tag. So make sure that you don't have an H2 or H3 or some other HTML element open that's trying to close for you. So now we've just wrapped everything in that div. Let's preview it to make sure we've changed the width properly, and there we go. So things worked out there. Now I want to push it into the center of the page, and the way we did that before, we're just going to do the exact same thing. We're going to define the margins on each side. So the margin left is going to be set to auto, and the margin right is also going to be set to auto. What this is saying is rather than defining a specific size of the margin on the left hand side and a specific size on the margin on the right hand side, what it's going to do is it's going to fill up automatically both sides to basically center it. Refresh this. Now it's nicely centered. What I want to do next is add a background image to this. So last time we added a striped background. This time I'm going to mix up a little bit, and in my case I'm going to add this plaid background. You can add whatever background you want. Just Google search background generator, and a lot of different sites will come up. I'm going to save this image. I'm going to make sure that it's in the same folder, and I'm going to call this plaid BG. So, I'm going to jump to this page, or this desktop for a second, just to show you that I have my styled resume folder. I'm working on the HTML file here, and this resume style CSS sheet, and then my plaid background. Oh, it didn't save properly. Hold on a second. Oh, download it. My mistake. So I'm just going to drag this to the desktop. So this is the actual file that I'm looking for. I'm going to drag it into the resume folder. I'm going to get rid of this other background that I thought I'd saved properly. I'm just going to delete that. And this is actually the file that I'm looking for. So I'm going to rename this to plaid BG. So now I have the 3 proper files in this folder. If I go back to the style sheet, the easiest way to add this background, remember that tiled backgrounds repeat, so just like a ceramic floor, each tile looks the exact same, but when you put them all together it creates a larger pattern. And to do that, I want it to be the entire background of the whole page, so I can just use the body as the background and say background image, and then I can browse to the right folder and the line with the semicolon, and then if I save this I can preview it and hopefully it should work. The reason I'm not using overall, for example, the overall div to put the background in my case, is because I want it to go over the entire background, whereas if I put it in the overall div it would only be 960 pixels wide, so it would only be that center section of the page. Then if I go to preview this, perfect, worked out properly. You can see the background here. What I don't like though is that it makes this text really difficult to read. So the way I'm going to fix that is just by putting a background color on this overall div. So if we go back to the overall div, I'm going to change the background color to white, save that, refresh it. There we go, makes it a lot easier to read, but everything's pushed up against the edge. I want to give a little bit of space so I can add a little bit of some padding here, let's say 10 pixels, save that, and there we go. Everything is a lot cleaner, a lot easier to read, and added some style and some color. Hopefully that helps you out for the assignment, and I will see you later on this week.